Check out some disgustingly good-looking Nurgle models. Spiky bits. Welcome back, hobby maniacs. Rob Baer from SpikyBits.com. Checking out a fantastic looking Nurgle army from White Metal Games. We're here with Caleb Dillon, founder of the studio. What's up, man?
Hey.
Man, I tell you what, this I've been watching this one in progress for a while, a couple months now, 6 months maybe?
Yeah, this one was a really slow burner project. It was kind of, studio projects sometimes get put aside when client projects take precedent.
As well they should.
As well they should. So we kept coming back to this project over and over again. But, you know, finally we got to the point that we felt like it was finished. A lot of times one of the things we do is we will absorb different collections over time. Sometimes we pick them up on eBay or on secondhand trade sites. Sometimes clients have old collections they want to liquidate. And so we just get a random assortment of stuff. And in this particular case, one of our clients had an old Nurgle army that he just hadn't finished. And so we absorbed the project and then took it upon ourselves to finish it out. There's actually a lot more than what's represented here. There's a lot more Marines and Terminators and Cultists, or Poxwalkers now. But this army is meant to be played as a Death Guard aligned Chaos Space Marine army. It's not really true Death Guard, but they've all taken the mark of Nurgle quite clearly. So this is what we call the bruised Death Guard, and the basic idea is that we use bruised coloration, so a lot of yellows, purples, and magentas. The focus was on the colors of the project and the conversions, and it wasn't so much on the details. So not every part of the armor is trimmed out or sort of taken care of. It was about more of creating an overall impression. So some of the figures, like that character you're holding there, he was a specialized conversion. Took a basic Chaos Lord, combined it with some Plague Guard bits, spare options here and there. We custom made a few weapons and, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, you can definitely see it in here. Like, this used to be a, Chaos Terminator Lord, I think.
It started there and then modified to taste. Yeah, and a lot of the things in the army are like that. All of the vehicles were kind of like, a lot of these vehicles are the kind of things that most people would have gone ahead and thrown away. But that makes them perfect for Nurgle, because then you just add on sculpting and postules.
Or orcs.
Or orcs, that's true. One or the other. Maybe both. We'd love to see a combo army at some point.
Do you like to play Nurgle? Do you like to play orcs? eBay and I guess there isn't a Toys R Us anymore. Walmart clearance aisle is your friend.
Yeah. We actually use a lot of old toys in our conversions. So like the Mauler Fiend in the very back, this guy here is meant to count as a Mauler Fiend.
Okay, that makes sense.
He's actually a combination of a tail from an old dragon figure. The arms and the head are from actual Nurgle parts, but then a lot of the other parts are sort of blended in together from different stuff. All of the postules you see are made from silica balls, which we compress into the putty as we're sculpting it. So we create basic muscle texture, and then we add some additional texture through things like that, or glass beads from Vallejo. So really we just combine mediums in any way we see fit that really makes it all work.
I really dig that. And then you got some custom basing. What is this guy supposed to be here?
So this guy he's the centerpiece for the army, and he's meant to count as a defiler. So he's roughly the same footprint as a defiler. He's based on a 160 millimeter round. This is kind of his hive nest. So we've got a bunch of knight heads kind of hiding on the base, where he's been collecting them over the years. He's posed dynamically on this piece from Sector Mechanicum. This model was a real challenge to build. He's a combination of multiple kits. The body is made up from a latex tail from an Alien Queen kit from the actual movie. And then the actual parts otherwise than that are from stuff like Hellbrutes, Defilers, a Blight Drone. The legs are from another company that makes little robot centipede legs. And then obviously many, many, many spare knight legs.
Yes, absolutely. A bunch of those armor plates there.
Yeah. One of the nice things about our collection is that we have so many different things left over from projects that oftentimes we can gather parts for months or even years until we're ready to build the collection.
And then just go through and knock it out. When
that's right.
You got a little bit of time. And then this is, I mean, we've all seen converted Chaos Rhinos before, but I feel like this is pretty fresh take on it.
Yeah, this kind of goes back to the original Demonic Possession back in 2nd edition.
Yep.
So we wanted to bring some of those ideas back in there. So stuff like the intestines that are all spilling out, the pustules on the back. Some of these, like this back panel, is actually from Spellcrow, which is a bits vendor. But the rest of this stuff is sculpted on or sculpted by hand. And then we incorporate third-party stuff, like this is a toy dragon head from, like, I think Dungeons & Dragons. And so we kind of work all that different stuff in together until we blend it to the point that we're happy.
Very cool.
So like the Land Raider in the back, the original doors up here were broken. It was a perfect opportunity to kind of make it look like something, was kind of spilling out from the inside.
Yeah, brought back from the island of misfit model kits.
Yeah, and then stuff like these little details on the top, like the tongue that has no mouth. Like, it doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be, a little dissettling.
Well, that's the allure of chaos, I suppose. So what advice do you have, like, looking at all that putty work and stuff? Like, a lot of times, green stuff can be actually kind of frightening to the newer hobbyist. I know when I first got started many years ago, I was like, oh, what's this green stuff? I don't like it.
It's a little intimidating to first learn.
But, like, what kind of advice do you have as far as, like, to get these kind of effects? Now, I know this is a lot of different materials here.
So the first thing I'd recommend is getting a good set of sculpting shapers.
Okay.
Companies like Green Stuff Industries will sell you a set for usually less than $30 or $40, and get them in a variety of sizes and styles. Normally, they'll sell you a starter kit with, like, 5 different shapers, and you can normally get that in 1 to 2 different sizes. I recommend, like, size 0, size 2, and size 4, and that gives you enough to get started. A lot of sculpting is really about tactile sensation. It's a little like painting. It's about knowing where to apply pressure.
Okay.
So starting with something like Nurgle is great because your mistakes can look like they were intentional. So sculpting something like muscle texture is a lot easier on a vehicle where you don't have to justify actual physiology.
Oh, right. Like there's muscles in the wrong place here.
That's right. It doesn't really matter when it's Nurgle because they're just cancerous bulbous growths.
Yep.
So starting on something like this is a lot easier. I definitely wouldn't recommend starting with fine details, until you feel confident. Like, we sculpt stuff like hair and mustaches, but we rarely sculpt, like, faces, if it's not really our forte. So just learn what your comfortable zones are, and then push through those whenever you get time. Another thing I'd recommend is getting some sort of acetone or solvent that will allow you to sort of soften the putty as you go. Some people will use Vaseline, but the problem is it doesn't wash off easily.
Oh, of the green stuff or yourself?
Well, both. But on your models, if you don't get it all the way off, then your paint will flake off over time.
Really? That makes sense. Oh,
yeah.
Gosh.
So companies like Ave Studios make something called safety solvent, and it's very cheap, and it allows you to sort of break down the putty as you work on it. So it smooths it out, kind of like water does on clay. So it allows you to smooth out your mixing mediums. So really, just having a good solvent like that and having good sculpting tools is really a good place to start. And just start small. Don't try to do anything too ambitious at first.
Or maybe a shoulder pad or like
something like that's fine.
Just like a little tentacle coming off of...
And another thing to keep in mind is that you can always sand it down if you're not happy with the final result. So having like a couple of like hobby files is always good. And I just mean like emery board style nail files, like what your girlfriend or wife might use on her nails. So if I'm not happy with the final detail, I can sand it down until I smooth out the parts I don't like, and then I can always resculpt if I'm totally dissatisfied.
Oh, that's really good advice. I never thought about that either. So what about like to get these pustule sacks and things like that?
So some people will use like some people will use beads that they already have in existence. What we use are silica balls. You'll find these every time you buy a pair of shoes. You find a small package of these in your shoes.
Aren't those to absorb water or something?
Yeah, that's basically right. And so they say do not eat. And that's
check.
Good advice. But really what you want to do is you want to press those down into the putty while it's still wet. And using your solvent, you can kind of smooth it out just a little bit so that it'll dissolve a bit and it'll look natural. So that's how we get all of those. And fortunately, if you get enough silica balls, they come in different sizes. You can have smalls, larges, that sort of stuff. And then we even use another medium called Vallejo glass beads, which is much, much smaller and more minute. But it's used for smoothing out transition areas. So if you want to go from like big balls to small balls, then you just use this stuff to sort of transition out. So, don't be afraid to use new mediums and test stuff out.
Yeah, that's all about adding to your hobby toolkit, your hobby arsenal, checking out all these things. I suppose green stuff isn't quite as prevalent as it used to be in the hobby, you know.
Green stuff has its uses. One of the nice things about green stuff is it takes detail really well. And the other good thing about green stuff is that it doesn't ever fully cure to a point that it's wicked hard. So if you don't like something, you can always rip it off with green stuff a lot easier than you can with, let's say, Magic Sculpt, which dries to a rock-like hardness.
Oh yeah, that is a good point too.
So when you're first starting out, green stuff is actually preferable because it's a real learning curve. And if you don't like the work, you can always rip it off.
Yep, that's actually good advice too. I'm not so much on the sculpting, so this was a good showcase and some good pointers that some stuff that we probably will never feature on the channel because that's not really our direct hobby forte. We're more of the more realistic, kind of quicker type stuff.
Well, sculpting is one of those things that, just like painting, it takes, you can learn the basics very quickly, but it takes years to master.
Absolutely.
And even after 10 years of practice, I still feel like I have a lot to learn. So, while we wouldn't say we are sculptors, I would say that we use sculpting as a way to bridge our modeling. So, just keep practicing, don't be frustrated, and just learn.
Yep, that can be truer words have never been spoken about this hobby. Be brave, hobby strong. All right, I think we got it all right there. Obviously, if you're looking to get some commission work done, make sure you hit up White Metal Games. They produce fantastic paint jobs along with custom sculpting and conversions as well.